Hello everyone. So today we are going to learn about the administration of the Mauryan Empire. So if you see the central administration, the king was the centralized power and he was assisted by the Mantri Parishad. Mantri Parishad is what? The Council of Ministers. At the central level you have the kingdom which was divided into provinces. That are the five provinces were there at that time, which are the Magadha, whose Magad, whose this Magad, whose capital was Patliputra. I don't know why I have actually made this presentation on computer and I have transferred it to mobile for screen recording. And in this, all these my table has been just she. My table has become some horrible thing. I had made a nice flow chart. Okay, so the kingdom was divided into five of provinces. This Kalinga should be over here. So this, what I'll do is keep. So you have five provinces: Magad, whose capital was Patliputra; Gandhar, whose capital was Takshila; Avanti, whose capital was Ujjain. The fourth province only. Its capital was Varanagari. So it was the fourth province was also called as Varanagari, and the fifth or the last one which was there was taken by Ashoka, that is Kalinga. Now Kalinga's capital was Toshali. Now what happened was that each province was divided into a number of districts. These districts were further divided into cities and villages. Two the cities and villages looked after by Pradeshika, Rajuka and Yukta. Now, if you see at the central government, you have the king. The power, centralized power, is the king. The king is assisted by the Mantri Parishad, the council of ministers, who was again the head of this council of ministers was the prime minister. Now, then this Mantri Parishad consisted of chief pujari, that is the purohit, the priest, then the military advisor who advised the king on military basis, the Senapati, the head treasurer, that is the Sannidhata, the taxation head, Samaharta. These are the names in which they were called as. The other officers were like the accountant general in charge of agriculture, superintendent of mines, ports, controller of Komaram. Then we have the provincial government. The head of this provincial government was the Kumar or the Aryaputra. The Kumar or the Aryaputra is the son of the king and the people like that, the central bodies. Then the king, the Aryaputra or the prince which was there, was usually assisted by the Mahamantram. And the other officer also took part in it and helped the Kumar or the Aryaputra to have this provincial government. The collection of taxation was done by the Pradeshika. The current Tehsildar or the revenue officer was that time Rajuka, and the treasurer was the Yukta. Then the district administration, the districts were called as Janpadas, and this were again looked after by Pradeshika, Rajuka and Yukta. The cities also had a similar administration, while the head of the city was the Nagaradiksha. Then the revenue system. The revenue was a chief source of income during Mauryans. 1/6 or 1/4 of the produce would go in revenue. Now there were two types of taxes mainly: bhaga, which was levied on agricultural produce, and cattle. So if you are producing this much, 1/6 of the agricultural produce you have to give to the government of that time, the king and all. While the second one was Bali, which is the religious tribute. Means if you want to go on a religious pilgrim, you have to pay some money. So that was again. Then you also have the toll tax imposed on articles bought for sale. If you have articles getting from some other place, then you have to get them sealed and have to pay a tax. Means if you want to sell your articles in the country, in their place, then they had to pay a tax. And then also the taxes were collected from gambling houses and liquor shops. Also they were collected from forests and mines. And where did this all these money from this revenue go? It goes to the king, and king uses them to give the people facilities like good roads, irrigations and hospitals. The king does not use them. The king has another money for his personal use, but the money which comes from the revenue is used only for the facilities of people only. Then you have a spy system. At Mauryans, there was a wide and brilliant network of spies, where the spies of their place, their country, used to were against the spies of another countries. Very nicely, the spy system was there. There were uh, more than one agent was asked for information. They did not depend on only one agent. If one agent gives the wrong information or fails to give information, they should have the another backup plan ready, and that for that they were more agents. Then the king was always kept informed about the working of the bureaucracy. That is, how is the people working, what is happening, all that, all those things king was told. He was informed about it. Then you have the military administration, where you had 6 lakhs army, 30,000 cavalry, 9,000 elephants, and 8,000 chariots. Imagine at that time. So you can imagine the prosperity during that time. They had various weapons like the bows, arrows, shields, swords, etc. The king was the commander in chief, and the military commission was there of 30 members. These 30 members controlled the army. Full army was under them, and this military commission was under the king, who was the commander in chief. They had a well laid recruitment policy, while the soldiers were paid in cash. All the soldiers were paid in cash on time. There was no injustice done to them. Also, they built forts at strategic places for safety. Ashoka's Dhamma. This is very important in this Mauryan Empire. The Ashoka's Dhamma is actually, you must have heard about this many a times, definitely. Still, I'll be telling this, that once Ashoka had a war against Kalinga, the last province. So to take Kalinga under his control, he fought against the rulers of Kalinga. He won, but what he saw was very devastating. He saw bloodshed, loss of life and property. There were so many people dying. Afterwards, he saw, get, if I am taking this, all these bad things are going to happen. That's not important. That's not at all good. So therefore, after seeing all this, he saw also a monk over there who was going side. That time he decided to follow Buddhism, and on the basis on the policies of Buddhism, he made Ashoka's Dhamma. Dhamma is based on unifying principle of all religion. Although it is means although he followed Buddhism, but it had principles of all religions. Means it was not like only Buddhism also has some drawbacks, like Buddhism also has some drawbacks. So therefore, Dhamma was something that all the religions ka good points he took and he put it in Dhamma. Dhamma is not a religion. Remember this. Dhamma is not a religion. It is a moral law, or the common code of conduct, or the ethical order in which the people should live. That is Dhamma. Now, this Dhamma had some principles. First of them was respect to elders and love to children. The children must respect their elders, and the elders must love their children. The second one was ahimsa, or non-violence. You should not commit any type of violence. You should follow ahimsa. Then you must go on the path of good deeds, so that it can lead to good life in the next birth. Why next birth? Why to wait for next birth? You have the immediate results also. You must respect to all religions. You must have no disrespect towards or ill intention toward any other religion, as all the people are equal. It disapproved empty rituals, like you believe on God, you believe on that power. You don't need to have any type of sacrifices or big rituals and pujas and all those things. You don't need to have. You just have a belief in God. That's enough. The God will be pleased on you. So he disapproved the empty rituals. Now, what was this impact of this Ashoka's Dhamma? Religious unity. Different people of different religions had coming in came in this dhamma. Therefore religious unity increased, moral values, that the people started living a normal life under the influence of dhamma. So good, so nice and beautiful points were given in dhamma, as we saw at the in last slide. So all those people followed that. End of crimes. Due to these good morals, the crime rates reduced. The public welfare, that the war ended, so all the money and the more attention went now towards the welfare of people. Therefore, in this way, Dhamma helped a lot. So, with this, we have completed the chapter. I hope you must have understood more in Empire. Thank you.